Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 798, Richard's here, and we've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking about new Windows Insider builds. There wasn't a build last week, but we're talking about some of the things that have been popping up that I've been finding using the new builds. We'll be talking Lego, we'll be talking vintage electronics, we're talking retro computers, we're talking Google, Android, Oracle, all sorts of stuff. So let's get straight to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, good. Nice long break over Easter weekend.
Yes, it seems everything has been quite over Easter weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was nice. I sat out in the garden for a bit, then got a bit of snow today. Strange weather we're having.
Yes. I went for a walk at the weekend and it snowed on me, which is very strange. Living down south, it's a strange white stuff coming out of the sky.
Yeah, and then I think it was on Friday and Saturday. I was sat out in the garden with a beer. It was lovely.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to start my next brew yet, but that's probably for a homebrew podcast, which I'm sure there's plenty. I must check some out actually, because I've got,
yeah.
I bought the wrong. I should have bought malt and I bought sugar, so I've got to buy some malt extract to put in my next batch.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm sure there's a podcast on those available, but we're not talking about beer. We'll be talking technology, and as you mentioned, it's been Easter. It's actually fairly quiet.
It's been a few things happening, but yes, there was no insider builds last week, was there?
No, there wasn't. There were some other stories. In fact, we're talking about insider builds. I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on last week. Gary and I talked about the new icons in Windows 10, which is the big thing, I suppose, that we've been talking about for Windows. Because as we said on the show, I think the visual stuff it makes it amazing how much of a difference it makes. And as a programmer, and developers, they spent months on the core of Windows, and they put new icons in, and it's suddenly, oh look, new stuff.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of the only visible thing we've had for some time, isn't it? So yes, they've been scrapping more of the UI with the Fluent Stick, which is, I guess, good as long as they do it properly and don't give up halfway through again. Because they did that with the modern stuff, didn't they, before? And they began to apply the modern interface, or Metro as it was, paradigm to the interface, and then they gave up halfway through. So we ended up with this holy mix of modern, Metro, Windows 7, Windows XP style icons, which persist to this day.
Yeah, they do.
But maybe not much longer.
Yeah, I did notice that since I've been using this build, was it 2.1.3.4.3, that the icons are all the way through the operating system, these subtle changes. So, for example, the network, the Wi-Fi icon, when you click on your little Wi-Fi indicator in the taskbar, and the VPN icon, if you've got that set up, they've all changed as well. So, all throughout the operating system, they've gone through those. So they have updated an awful lot of them. Which gives it that sort of fresh look.
Yes, because I mean, obviously, when you look in File Explorer, you see a lot of changes too, which is it's good in some ways. I worry what will happen when this begins to hit ordinary users, obviously, because as soon as you change, people who use Windows are used to a certain way of working. I think there's some of these icons are quite dramatically different in how they look, and they could cause some problems, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think they go back to sort of Vista era, don't they? The current ones, or the ones that are in the current live Windows 10.
Yeah, I'd say Vista. There's some that go back to Windows XP as well, if you know where to dig around. So yeah, and in fact, there are some that go back even further. Lest we forget Notepad.
Yeah, which has now got a new icon. I think ODBC Manager's still got a classic icon, and even the classic file dialog box. It's got the Windows 3.1.1, isn't it, dialog box?
Yeah, I think there'll be quite a few places where you can tell the apps and things that Microsoft would really prefer you not to go near, and they're the ones that they don't bother to smack with the Fluent brush.
I actually did read about this. Somebody from Microsoft, I think, tweeted about it. It is a few months ago, so I probably want to find it now. But ODBC Manager is the thing for the Open Database Connection Manager, or whatever it is, for putting connection strings in for what used to be for Access or Paradox, or even SQL databases use it. Still used now. And there's a reason. If you open that, you can just type ODBC into Windows and you can open it. And if you do the file open, you get the Windows 3.1 style file dialog box, the file open one. And there's a whole real important reason why they did that, because it was going to just changing it to a modern one would break so many things because of the libraries it needed and everything else. So that's why that has the legacy interface in there. But so it just shows you the backwards compatibility of Windows, and that they're still maintaining UI from Windows 3.
I can't imagine what hokey things must be happening with some apps that they need to have the UI never be changed. That implies it's doing some kind of auto population things, or some, I don't know, DDE hooks or something. That's a wow.
I think it was something like that. It was something like about DDE, in fact. And I'll, in the interest of being bleeding edge, let's have a look. Here's ODBC Manager. And we can have a look at that there. So I think you have to do a file-based one. I'm really...
Oh, I am flashing back here looking at this. Wow. This looks really familiar.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Whoa, look at that. That is the old school Windows file dialog. Look at that.
Yeah.
I've not seen that since Visual Basic 4.
Yeah, so for listeners on audio, what you were looking at is the Visual Basic 4 file select directory box that was, I think, first appeared in 3.1 or 95, but it's even got the files and everything. Look at that; it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always been tweaked a bit since my days of using it. I think VB3 was the first time I saw that, yeah. And of course, it's handling long file names, which is some versions I had did the old 6 ampersand, 6 tiled 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So if you feel like nostalgia and want to look at the old select dialog box, open up ODBC Manager. But
yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, if an application is that badly behaved, it needs that UI to stay like that, then you should probably consider not using it anymore.
Yeah, I think so. But it's still actually quite a good way of not hard coding connection strings into your application, but I think most modern applications have a slightly better way of handling that. Yes,
that's true. I mean, although I do remember that there was quite a fun comparison where somebody was bemoaning how many Steam games suddenly stopped working when macOS Catalina came out, because obviously it threw away the 32-bit compatibility, and someone responded with a screenshot. I think it was Windows 10, and it was running, I think it was Word 95 or something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of the slavish adoption of backwards compatibility everywhere, Windows does keep on working.
Yeah, absolutely does. Yeah, so we've gone from one extreme there. So you've seen we're talking about the new icons in the new builds, but you can still get the old 3.1 dialog box if you try.
Yes, indeed.
So I've been using this build for a couple of weeks now. So I have this on my Surface Duo, which tends to be my sort of evening device when I'm browsing the web, and nice the icons. It does look a bit better, and of course it's the nice thing, it's got that control, that Windows V paste as text as well, which I do miss that on the on release versions. I wish they would get that rolled out.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you mentioned, there was no build last week.
There wasn't, but there was some other news. I think, wasn't there? There was. I mean, obviously, we've Microsoft Cloud fell over again.
Yes,
that happened. That happened on April 1st, I think. Which initially I thought it must be some sort of April Fool's joke, but no, it seems that that Microsoft's Azure Cloud went down for a whole bunch of services, which was a tad embarrassing. And I think I think it was like Xbox Live went down, Teams went down for about an hour or so, which is not the most ideal idea of things. Although that said, it was DNS. It's the old internet mantra. It's not DNS. It can't be DNS. It was DNS.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think there was that. I don't think I know. I don't know. Maybe it's the timing of it, because I know I would normally, if it's during the day, then I get all the tickets coming through. But although not when Outlook doesn't work, don't get the tickets then.
Yeah,
just get people trying to ring me.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think in this case it was a surge of DNS queries, but I think it was probably around US time when it will happen. I don't think it was on European time this time.
Yeah. Well, very good. Yeah. the week before we had like beta channel patches and so on, but we didn't have anything at all last week.
No, very quiet actually. I wonder if they're getting ready for something big.
Well,
he said hopefully.
He said, yeah. What the official? It just didn't meet the quality bar, so they didn't put it out, which kind of makes sense.
True, although it is inside a ring, and you think what's in there, and also there's a quality bar, really.
Oh, actually, and I did did the correction last week, but for your benefit as well. When we were talking the other week, and I said I don't think they were testing these patches, including the printer one.
Yeah.
Well, I was wrong. They do, because they did one of the fixes came through it was on that beta release a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, they did test that. So those fixes, including the one that broke the printers, is in was tested on the insider builds, but it's such a it's such a niche thing, isn't it? That when you get a small subset of insiders, and then you're going, how many people are using that in production with their Kai Zero printers, and that's how those things get through the net, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. But also, I would say around that, it would be very helpful if in some way they could say, "Here's what's changed," because it's so good. Because it could have said, "You know what? We've changed how printing works this version." Then people would test printing instead of saying, "Here's a build and here's a list of things that you don't really care about, like news and interests," but not the thing that says, "Oh, and by the way, we've also done some fairly major changes to how, I don't know, the GTDI is working, or whatever happened in the background that stopped images being printed, or worse than that, the blue screen when printers happened." So they tinkered with the printers, but they didn't say anything. I think that in many ways, I think, underlines one of the problems with the Windows Insider program, that Windows Insiders are expected to test stuff. And I'm an insider, I use Windows, but it would be nice to know what actually has been changed. I know it's very difficult when it's such a big code base, but I just think, it's very difficult. You get direction from the limited release notes they hand out, but I think what the printer instant demonstrated was there's obviously other stuff happening under the hood, which we don't know about, and therefore we can't test. So I stand by I don't think they're testing it properly.
Yeah. Well, if they were testing it properly, they wouldn't have the issues. So it's just, let's see what they do to try and fix that.
Yeah, and I should point out, I give them a hard time, but I just want them to be better. I think they can be better. I just think, and they should be leveraging the immense goodwill they have from a whole load of Windows Insiders to be better.
Yeah. So that was all the stuff I had for the Windows Insiders. So hopefully we should get the build this week. I don't know whether the holidays make a difference to when they release builds and whether in the US, but maybe we'll get that one this week.
Possibly, yes. I mean, it's normally it's Wednesdays when they appear. So I guess there was obviously the bunny day over the weekend. So I think the US does have that as a kind of holiday. But I would expect there to be a build this week, and we are getting now quite close to Microsoft's build event. So hopefully there should be something fairly major happening, certainly around the Windows 10X or whatever they're calling it.
Yes, yeah, that would be good. It would be. We had the Panos Panay a few weeks ago, wasn't it? Was it? It feels like, I don't know, it was weeks or months ago, kind of hinting there was things coming that they weren't ready to talk about yet. So maybe that would be one of the places they can talk about it.
I do hope so. Because it's getting beyond a joke now that it's kind of, the rumors are saying it's now going to happen towards the end of this year, which does make sense if they're going to announce things at build, because you have to give developers time to produce stuff. But I think if 10X doesn't come out in the latter half of the year, it's going to miss another holiday season, and that's bad for devices. If it's not around then, it's going to lose another year to Chrome OS, which I think should be a concern for Microsoft, unless of course they don't really mind so much about Windows anymore. They're more concerned about Azure and the cloud.
Yeah, but they did say when the pandemic has brought Windows back into focus, and Panos Panay is now heading up the Windows leadership. So let's see.
And remind me how long ago it was that he showed off the Neo.
Oh, the Neo. It's a shame that that's not coming. I know. Well, it's not that it's not coming. It's been delayed. I don't know. Is it delayed a year or delayed indefinitely? But I think Windows 10X has definitely had its focus shifted for the single screen devices. So that's what they said last year, didn't they? So
yes, I mean, I get the feeling with Windows 10X they've kind of scaled it back to say, look, let's just make it work first, and then we can add on the fun bits after that. But let's just make it work, and that's, I think, what the current challenge is, as I understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still.
Now there was some other news and things that we wanted to talk about. You mentioned before about Google.
Yeah, so this is this is a Supreme Court ruling, in the US Supreme Court ruling. This is there's been this lawsuit that's been running for years. I think it sort of was filed back in 2010, I think, and it was over Google's use of Java APIs in the Android operating system. And Oracle, obviously, they purchased Sun back in the day and acquired the IP for Java, which has caused many problems. I'm not going to go into here about Oracle and Oracle's approach to licensing, but they basically took Google, I think, to court, and the issue, I think, really was around the copyright of those Java APIs, and it's been bouncing to and fro and to and fro and to and fro, and I think on Monday there was a 6-2 decision that Google's sort of very limited copying of the Java APIs in Android was fair use under US law, which basically means I think it's pretty much won. I think.
Oh.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Which is great news, obviously, for Android phone owners, because it would have been embarrassing if not, and Google would have been on the hook for an awful lot of money to Oracle. I think the only people that have got properly rich out of it are probably the lawyers.
A lot of lawyers, yeah. At least you don't have to download and install the Java on your phone for it to keep working.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Every time you open your phone, it says there's an update of Java you need to before you can make this call.
Yes, and install some awful search bar as well.
Yeah, and all your other applications stop working.
Yeah. Although I think wasn't it today that Microsoft have also they've released the first preview of the Microsoft build of the Open JDK, I think, as well. That came out today, which I think is quite a big step. It's a weird situation, the Microsoft and Java thing, because obviously we all know what Microsoft and Java were like. Years ago, J++, J Sharp, it was not a happy place.
Was it J Sharp? Was it? I can't remember. It was in the Visual Studio kit. I remember having it.
I think there was definitely J++. I seem to recall it being in J Sharp, but I could be completely wrong there because it's a long time ago. Because they had to abruptly pull everything, pull the whole lot, didn't they?
Yeah.
And so I think it was back in 2018, 2019, they kind of signed up again for the Open JDK, because obviously it's now the new caring sharing Microsoft open source, hurrah. And the first thing they did was, I think, port it for Windows and ARM, which proved to be quite handy for Mac OS machines as well, running Apple Silicon. And now that they've kind of got their standard build, because I think it's because an awful lot of enterprise workloads in the Azure cloud run on Java, loads of them. Loads of them run Java, so it's actually quite important for Microsoft to have that. And so I think also it turned up in SQL 2019 as well, I believe.
Right.
So yeah, but the Oracle and Google thing, I think it's great. It's good news for Android phone owners. I'm sure they wouldn't have been affected either way, but it's just, and there is a certain amount of, oh dear, Oracle lost. That's a shame, because they are quite difficult. If you've ever had to deal with Oracle's licensing rules, they can be a bit difficult. So I think this could have been very, very difficult if Google had lost there. Even though I'm no fan of Google either, but yeah. So there we go. That looks like after 10 years it might finally be over.
Wow, these things take so long, don't these legal disputes and things like that?
Yeah, they do. Although speaking of Android phones, I was very sad to see that the LG is closing down its smartphone business. That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can't say I've ever wanted to get an LG phone or anything, but you see them on the market, and you see that if you go into PC World or whatever car phone warehouse, and you see them on the shelves there. It was always good to have an alternative, but it's a shame that they're pulling the plug, because they had a foldable, I think, a lower cost foldable.
Well, they were going to do a rollable phone too, weren't they? That was kind of being mooted, and that was that, and there was also that bizarre T-shaped thing too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
But I guess this phone's never really took off, and I understand it's been making a loss for years. So yeah, it's kind of backs away. Which I think it's is it at what point are they stopping? It's pretty soon, isn't it? I think it's in end of July they're going to basically close down all smartphone operations and just offload the whatever inventories left, and that will be that, which is I think quite sad. And of course you've also got to, if you bought an LG phone, I don't think they've made any definite commitment to how long support will go on for, because of course you've got to, these the apps and things all need to, so you may need to do some rooting of your phone to get the latest Android updates. But yeah, I was sad to see it. I was sad to see the LG were putting out, because I guess that means you've just got Samsung now, and you got Google, and then you got a whole bunch of sort of random Chinese makers making these making Android phones now, which is, I'm not sure it's entirely healthy.
I mean, it just shows you perhaps, as much that Microsoft took the hit for when they acquired Nokia and then closed the operation, you can see why, it was right that look at other, Sony, they stopped doing Ericsson. In Nokia now, I think if you go back, maybe even more, 10 years, you had BlackBerry, and now it's just really Samsung or Apple, with, I don't know what Google's market share is, but I guess it's not that big compared to Samsung's share of Android.
Yeah. And there was also Huawei or Honor. Of course, they're no longer officially Android, are they? They're kind of it's the open source version of Android, because you can't use a Play Store anymore. Yeah.
And there's, like you said, if you go into PC World or Carphone Wares, you do see the random sort of other brand ones. But it's a shame that it's almost coming down to two, isn't it? I don't know what Google feel about that. About that Samsung effectively, although it's their operating system, it's effectively Samsung's operating system, and they've just got their own and some smaller manufacturers with that. And if Samsung decided to change to another operating system, that could almost wipe out Android if they had their own flavor. If they ever fell out with Google and somehow made Tizen whatever work, I don't know. But,
that's okay, because it'll always be the Surface Duo.
Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot about that. Yes, so there's Microsoft as well. Yeah, of course. As I'm looking directly at the device. Yeah.
And I mean, LG did do a Windows phone, didn't they? They did was it the Optimus? They did, I think, as well. The Optimus 7, which is an LG phone. So an LG Windows phone.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. If you think back to who were the original partners for Windows Phone, you had LG, Nokia. What was the other one that I had? The blue one. Oh, what was it called?
HTC.
HTC. Yeah. I don't think, what happened to HTC?
No idea. No idea at all.
Yeah. They were big because they were a Chinese. Were they a Chinese one that they did for other manufacturers until they just sort of went on their own?
Yeah, I thought their mobile phone. Did he get bought by somebody or something? Again, this is.
HTC is still going.
Oh, there we go. Good.
And they do obviously they do the Vive.
Yeah.
But you can buy the HTC Desire20 Pro.
Oh, there we go. Is that because it's got a 20-inch screen? I mean, Ian, I know how you love your big phones. So imagine that.
Yeah. They still do. Oh, the good news is they do a blockchain fun.
Oh, crikey! I've been trying to buy a graphics card today, and I've realised that you cannot buy them right now, can you? For love nor money, graphics cards. They are. I mean, even the old graphics card in my machine that I bought about 3 or 4 years ago for VR is now worth more second hand than it was brand new, because of it's ridiculous, actually. Yeah. So thank you, blockchain and Bitcoin. Thank you for that. That's great.
Yeah. People. I know someone that's doing mining on his gaming PC. I think he said something like he was getting like £3 or something a day, he reckoned, or something like that. But I said, how much power are you using?
Exactly. Let's just look at your electricity bill, shall we? Just see what you're actually using it. So it's one of the least eco-friendly ways of making money. That's for sure.
Yeah. So
we should ask Gary about that. We should ask Gary about electricity consumption and blockchain to see us.
Probably more than his car.
Exactly. How far could Gary run his Jaguar for?
For
for mining X% of one Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's a shame actually, because I know there are a lot of gamers wanting to get the VR, and especially some of the new cards that are supposed to be really good with things like Flight Sim and everything else, which is, I guess, is one of the things you're looking at.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as I say, I'm really trying to, just because I realize my rig here is now 5 years old, but it's an i7 with 16 gigs of RAM, so it should be okay. So I just sort of give it a midlife kicker and just up the graphics card speed. But yeah, it's proved to be very hard to get hold of one.
Yeah,
at least one that's not insane amounts of money.
Yeah, and they had the thing where they were blocking sort of mining, weren't they? But then somehow a driver got released that unblocked it.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, that was one of the the oopsie moments. Oh well, never mind.
Yeah, because I think that's the only way that they could separate the market out. But I suppose Nvidia don't care, do they? If you as long as you buy their card, they don't mind what you do with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I guess that there is some reputational damage if because the cards are for gaming, and if gamers can't get hold of them.
Yeah, it is a shame that, and I know that, like we talked about last year, my son built his own PC, and if he couldn't get a card for it, he would have been, pretty disappointed, because he does like his gaming PC.
Yeah.
But I found I've got the Game Pass from PC, which I was playing Forza Motorsport, but for the last, I haven't used it for two months, so I need to get around to remembering to cancel that. Otherwise, I'll be paying for something I'm not using really. It's it seems like a good idea, but I don't know. I find very rare amounts of time to do any PC gaming at the moment.
I've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves, an awful lot of Sea of Thieves, and yeah, I'm terrible, absolutely terrible. But I've been playing, and I tend to moan a lot about the fact it updates itself. So each time I want to try and play it with some friends, you all have to wait half an hour for that week's update to happen, which normally introduces more bugs. But I have been impressed also with the increase in content as well, because we've been playing it now for about a year, myself and some friends, and the content has changed and improved. I think Sea of Thieves might even have won a gaming BAFTA recently.
Right.
I think again, I could be completely wrong there, but that rings a bell. So yeah, I'd recommend you give some PC games a crack in. I think you might be pleasantly surprised.
Maybe I need to have one more go before I cancel and let it, once it's paid, and get another month or so, and then see how I go.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will probably cancel Game Pass at some point, especially now they've gone. I think they've done the Xbox Live games that are free to play. You don't need the gold membership to do multiplayer now, do you? Yeah. No. So that rules out that. And I think if you're only playing, as I am, maybe one or two games, when I play Flight Sim and I play Sea of Thieves, and occasionally I'll do some Forza Horizon, you have to do the maths and work out if it's worthwhile buying those or paying it's now what, £14 a month? I can't remember what it is now. I know it's gone up quite dramatically recently. I've
got just the PC one. I think it's $7.99, something like that. Okay. So to buy Forza Horizon whatever 4, it's actually it's good value really, if you work it that way. So as long as you play it, I think the Game Pass is good value.
Yeah, well, exactly. So at the moment, I mainly play a Sea of Thieves, so I could buy that. I think that's not that much money, and of course you can also get these things on Steam as well now. So yeah, Microsoft again demonstration that don't really care where you do these things as long as they get paid. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, which definitely, the way that they operate now is, it was all platform specific, wasn't it? Now it's wherever the users are, that's where the content will be.
Yeah, and they do seem to have done a good job as well with xCloud from what I can see.
Yeah,
certainly when you compare it to the alternatives. I'm thinking Stadia here, which is not going quite so well.
Yeah, xCloud, actually, I think that's probably one of the things that just perhaps do a month subscription just to try that when they bring the PC version out and see what that's like.
Yeah, definitely.
And certainly, I should try it on the Duo as well, because I've seen videos of people using it on the Duo and it works pretty well by the looks of it.
Good.
It's a nice little machine for that. Yeah.
One more use for the Duo. Happy days.
Well, I'm still using mine.
Well done.
I use it every day. Use it for Teams meetings and everything. Everything's on here now.
I'm really hopeful we're going to see Duo 2 this year. I think this year is probably the make or break year for the Duo, because there needs to be a new one out probably August, September time. And right now it's really quiet. So hopefully it's a quiet before the big launch.
Yeah, well, I think the Surface team were always pretty good at keeping things under wraps, weren't they? So not quite as good recently, but they were in the past surprise events. So we'll see.
Definitely.
I know that they purchased the software development team that did some of the work for that, and that's integrated into Microsoft. So hopefully that'll improve. The updates are pretty good, as I mentioned before, but only in terms of stability. There's not a whole ton of features that they keep adding each month, which there's not a huge missing, but it would be nice to get some new features. But at the moment, they just do stability updates each month, so it gets more stable, but you don't get anything new and shiny. I think the Android launcher, if you use it on a Samsung phone, it has more features than the Android launcher on Duo, which I guess is to do because they took out some of the features so that it doesn't break on the dual screen. So, but then they should be adding those back in now. So they've had 6 months now. So hopefully that will either come to this device or a V2 device that they can improve the hardware with, as we've mentioned, camera, NFC, wireless charging, and then the software through the launcher.
Great.
Breaking news as well for you. Visual J++ was the Java that Microsoft got sued for. Yeah.
And when was that? Was that
1996?
You know what? I think 25 years ago, I can be forgiven for getting that one roll off the top of my head. I'm gonna give myself a pass for that one. Yeah. Oh, crikey, I remember that. Yeah. Was that all around the Java virtual machines that they were
yeah,
using
and they
back
got
then?
sued. Yeah, by Sun.
Yeah.
And they discontinued it sadly in 2004.
Yeah, because I remember that being a pretty good system actually. If you were doing Java, I remember it working pretty well. The issue, of course, being it was all Microsoft and closed source, and back then Microsoft was a very different company. But I seem to recall it being, as a developer, I thought it was pretty good. It was just the Never Used Microsoft Brigade were less than impressed, and of course it did stomp all over Sun's IP, and Microsoft wisely just said fine, we'll pull it, and that was it.
Yeah, it was in Visual Studio 6, which is where I had it.
Yeah.
And I do remember installing it and thinking, well, what will I do with this? So I'll just stick to my Visual Studio, which will be VB4 at the time, and Visual, as regular listeners will know, Visual Internet, which was my personal favorite.
Wasn't there an April Fool's joke from Microsoft around that time as well, of Microsoft Coffee or something, which is kind of a spoof on Java, and which I gather actually made it as far as some stores before the Microsoft PR engine went into overdrive and said, no, it's a joke, stop it. And I can vaguely remember that from the time, because it did make it into a few magazines before people began to call Microsoft and say, is this true? And they said, no, it's not true, someone's having a joke. But it's been a risky time. I must admit, I did look very carefully at the date on the LG announcement.
Yes.
I thought, is that really going to happen? Oh yes, it's not April the 1st. That's okay.
I think the people have been burnt pretty much by these April 1st ones on there. So I think you actually get people who don't publish anything around April 1st just in case it gets misinterpreted.
Yeah, you got to be very careful, definitely. And it's even harder, writing about stuff, because each press release that comes through, you think, is this some witty joke? Because the problem is you'll get some April Fool's jokes which are actually really amusing and funny because they're just absurd and they're clearly a joke. And you get other ones where someone thinks they're being funny, but they've done something that's just it's actually plausible, or is very niche, and you think that's not, because you're going to catch some people with that, and that's not so funny. So, I mean, I should say I did an April 1st joke last year about NASA bringing back the Saturn V, which I felt fell quite nicely into the realms of absurd. But I gather a few people initially thought, "Oh, really? Oh, no, it was a joke." So yeah, one's got to be careful.
Yeah, and I think quite often the humour's lost in print sometimes, or in text, isn't it?
Certainly can be, yes.
Yeah, it can be lost in the details. And I think that's what effectively kills a lot of them as well. And I think I noticed a lot of the just get jumped up PR articles now, aren't they? Just somebody sending a PR article to you, trying to get you people like you to post, and it's just not funny, and it's plainly a PR thing from a tech company or somebody to get you to post their story and give them some free advertising.
Absolutely.
I bet you have to filter a lot of those out.
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one. I mean, it's okay, a bit of a peek behind the curtain here, but yes, you do have to go through and look out for ones that are just pure marketing. But it's certainly the publication that I work for. If you just regurgitate a PR piece, then that does not go down well. There's various layers of editorial that will catch that. But yes, yeah, it's one of the things that if ever you write or you tweet a thing, you can be guaranteed that within the next few days you'll be bombarded, just absolutely bombarded with helpful PR suggestions. And I think the problem the industry has had in the last year is because of the dearth of conferences, meetups, and things. All those contacts and face-to-face things you might have done have now gone, so you end up relying more and more on emails and press releases, which is, it's not ideal. So I'm looking forward to when we can meet people once more.
Yeah, absolutely. So am I. Like visit to the Computer Museum.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming, May 17th.
Yeah, and hopefully the. I've been playing around with. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about that magazine. I posted a link for that, and they've added a load more now. These computer magazines, music magazines that I was reading. So, but the music technology magazine. So I'm absolutely fascinated. And this website, this museum's site, has been uploading. They've got all sorts. So they've now got Sound on Sound in there, music technology. They've got some performance music magazines as well, but absolutely fascinating. I've loved going back through those and reading reviews of, like we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the MSX, reading the review of the CX5M, the Yamaha's MSX music computer. I'm just reading those. They're absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I've been spending a lot of time on those. I tried to get them to read on the Kindle, actually. It's like a magazine, but my really old Kindle struggled with the web pages, so maybe a more modern Kindle would be a good one. But the Surface, I use my Surface Go to read the magazines, which is actually quite a good format for that. But I thought it'd be quite cool to read, on a Kindle or something that's easier on the eye, perhaps a little bit. But
yeah, the Kindle does work. But I think colour's always handy too, isn't it? Especially if there's any imagery. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so there's pictures of your 80s pop stars in these magazines as well, which is quite funny. And so some of them are quite interesting because it's on the. I was reading one of with Vince Clarke just before Erasure's first album. So talking about the start of the project, and obviously Erasure have gone on to, they were massive in the 80s, but even now they're still going. And Vince Clarke is kind of a treasure in that national treasure in electronic music circles. But this is early days. You're reading this stuff, so it's quite eclectic. The views in there, or you can have like Nick Kershaw's in there, and it's kind of fun. But it's the old kit that I really enjoy reading, which is one of the things I'm going to start on my. I've got my studio here now. I'm going to start restoring things, and that's what I wanted to show you.
Look at that! That is a thing of beauty. What is that, Ian?
My Gen SX1000.
That's magnificent.
Which I bought off a friend in college for £40 because it had a broken key on the end. You can see
it's still broken to this very day. Yeah,
it's still very broken. I haven't repaired it, so I think I'm going to repair it. But all these are analog pots, potentiometers. So some of these people they've got very noisy now. So if they're on the audio chain, you get a lot of crackle. If some of them don't control the frequencies and things like that. So this is a frequency one, and it's a bit random. So I've got to work out how to clean these. So I don't know that I'm guessing the first job would to try to literally to take top off and clean them, or whether I'd need to replace any of them. But actually, it all works.
Well, I think that's a question for podcast listeners. How do you repair, sort of 40, 50-year-old, analog knobs? Really, those pots. Oh, so, I just love the wood trim. Look at the wood trim. That's magnificent.
Yeah. So there's no MIDI. There's no USB. There's no optical out. There is a single.
So it's got a synth tone. What's that sound like?
That's the name of it. Yeah. It's a
Synthetone SX1000. Oh, that's a fabulous bit of kit.
Yeah, a single. It's a monophonic, so which means one note at a time. So no chords. It's a single oscillator on there, but it's that classic sort of analog oscillator layout where you've got the filters and everything else. So if you're familiar with the any analog synth sounds used in dance music now, but also 1970s Doctor Who would definitely have featured one of these. This is a pretty obscure one. It's not particularly for its era. It was a cheap one, but it's still I've had it that long that I just want to clean it up and get it working. But I did. I think I've got another one which I can show you over there. So you can see that one there. That is a 1986 DX100.
How many keyboards have you got in?
Well, you can have a look. That don't count that one because that's my son's. So they're mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a Nord there, 2 Korgs, 3 Korgs there, and that's a Yamaha. But that's a Yamaha. That's a 1986 one. These are newish. That's a 2000 era. That was what I bought a couple of years ago. And this is a 1985 drum machine on there as well. And
so those are what are used to produce the intro and outro music to the podcast, are they?
And some other tracks. This is the 1986 DX100.
Look at that. That is proper 80s there, isn't it? That's an 80s panel up there. All those buttons.
What's the best thing about it is it's got a strap there, so you can guitar it. Occasionally do, much to the rest of the family is going, oh God. This is very nice sound. It's very 80s, as 80s as you can possibly get the Yamaha DX sound. If you remember the 80s electric pianos and everything else, that was all the Yamaha.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the bass. There's a lot of 90s dance music uses the bass on this one. So
you can always tell when it's a good tune if you get one the electric piano and 2 the shouty woman's voice. Those 2 things indicate it could be a good 80s early 90s dance track.
Yeah. There's a sound on it. I think it's called solid bass on this one. One of the presets that you hear on a lot of early 90s dance music. So
not the Cassiotone bossa nova then.
No. So all this is then all MIDI'd up to my laptop, which is the gaming laptop. So I've got a mixer which is USB, which plugs into that. So all the audio inputs go into that USB mixer, and then there's the modern synths have got their own USB, and I've got a MIDI interface as well. So all controlled through the one Windows 10 laptop, which is really good. And with the big monitor on there, the 4K monitor, it's actually a really nice environment. But very, very different when you try and use that gen, though. That's no MIDI on that, no nothing. You just got to play it right, or it doesn't re-record it.
Well, let's face it, we've all got a lot of time on our hands at the moment, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about your adventures in restoring it.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, so I have got I think I've done another one actually since. Yeah, I finished one at the weekend, so you can have a listen to that one that features the DX100, not the Gen though. That needs cleaning up, but the DX100 and all these other gear. So I've got that on my SoundCloud. I spend ages doing this stuff, and then I play it to the family, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, another song." I'm not sure whether Pink Floyd when they were writing their songs, they played, whether they had got the same reaction from their family. I don't know. Or when Lennon and McCartney played it, and they didn't just nobody shrugged their shoulders, I think, when they wrote their songs. But
or said, "Can you turn it down, please? EastEnders is on."
Oh yeah, that's a pretty common one. Yeah. Well, that's what. But anyway, it's where the worlds cross over. So my retro computing and music all fits together. So actually, this DX100, that is what was linked to the MSX when it came out. You could buy it as a system with the Yamaha MSX computer running Microsoft Basic, linked up to the DX100 or the DX7. In fact, the MSX has Yamaha one has the sound chip out of that keyboard in it. So.
Oh, really? That's cool.
But
Because I mean, it was the Atari ST that was a big MIDI machine, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the Yamaha tried that before, and then it was the Atari that sort of made it. Actually, we have got speaking of interesting retro stuff. I am lining up as another guest fairly soon, and this guy has done some amazing stuff. He's rebuilding. He's building a ZX80 and a Spectrum and a Jupiter Ace from scratch with original components and a new PCB. Wow! So that's a challenge and a half. But yeah, he's got a project to do all this. So he's doing it's not even restoration. It's building brand new kit with the original.
Will he be trying to source the original chips and things, or is he going to do it using an FPGA?
Well, he's going to try and source some original ones, but he's only just starting the project. But he's going to be joining us to talk about it at the start of the project, and then we can catch up later when he gets on it. But he's doing some really good stuff. He's got his own little retro shelf, a bit like some of us have got as well. So yeah, that should be interesting. So we'll talk about that on a future show.
Brilliant. That sounds great.
So I think that is all the stuff we got to. That's about all the time we've got for this week. I'm going to go and get my soldering iron out.
Exactly. Yeah. Screwdrivers, soldering iron. Let's get that fixed.
Yeah. No, I think cleaning is going to be the starting point with it. I might even fix that broken key, which has been like that since at least 1986.
Excellent. I look forward to that.
So where can we find you, Richard?
You can mostly find me on Twitter at Richards_speed.
And you've got some great stuff. I've seen some of your Lego stuff. Your Lego stuff is getting more complicated than NASA's actual projects.
Yeah, it is. In all ways, once you tumble down the Lego brick hole, it's quite a long way down. I mean, obviously there's the official Lego kits, and I've just today got hold of the new space shuttle, which I'm looking forward to building. But I'm sure many people know about this stuff, but I had no idea about all the amateur designers out there who create their stuff using the Studio app, and then publish both manifests of pieces that you need and plans to construct stuff. So I built most recent builds were a version of Skylab, which was obviously America's first space station in orbit, which went up in '73. And there's the level of detail that these engineers, I'll say engineers because I mean they're designers, but the level of engineering detail they managed to put on these models is quite astonishing, really. And I'd suggest anyone looks up. I think it's the Bricks in Space Facebook group is a good place to start. Also, the likes of rebrickable.com or bricklink.com are two good sites, and it's the detailed models you can get. As I'm a big Skylab fan, I've been very impressed. But also, it's where they'll take existing models, like say Lego's Saturn V, and they will do things like making them more accurate. So you can basically say, okay, you need to have these pieces here. You keep given the file, you order them as separate bits of Lego from somewhere like Bricklink, other places are available, and then you just modify the models so they're even more accurate. And it is quite the brick hole to fall down. And I must admit, and I think there's one guy, I think he's runs a site called Skylab Bricks, and he says on his instructions on how to actually get the pieces that you need to do these very complicated models. Do this, do that, do this, do that, then spend lots of money, because that's really what you end up doing. But it's I must admit, certainly the models which I've built so far. One of, as I said, a couple of Skylab models, and also one of the latest Mars rover. Very, very impressive stuff. So I'd recommend anyone who's got a Lego interest and perhaps is tiring of Lego's own official kits, get along to the likes of Bricks in Space or Bricklink or Rebrickable and just see what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another one of those things that you get down the rabbit hole and there's no way out.
Yeah, there is a way. It's called bankruptcy.
Yeah, I think I have the physical limitation of not being able to fit any more synthesizers than over there, which stops me from buying anything else. But with Lego, it's not quite the same. Although I guess you're hitting the same issue now.
You just build more shelves. You build more shelves. I mean, I had one problem where I did build the launch tower for the Lego Saturn V, which is a meter tall by itself. I built a launch tower, and when I built it, I'd forgotten how tall the Saturn V was, and I reached my ceiling before I finished it, and that wasn't good.
Yep, ceiling moved then, was it?
Yeah, I had to very carefully move it down a level. It was a bit touch and go. That so it's but it's for some reason, maybe it's because I've not had much to do in the last year. I've been building a lot of Lego, and it's different. What I'd like to do really is to do some of the Mindstorm Technic stuff, which you can control from a computer, and actually motorize more of it, because I've motorized some bits of it so far, but the microcontroller bits are, while they're all available, it doesn't seem to be quite as well supported by Lego themselves as it used to be, but there is quite a massive enthusiastic community around it. So I'm thinking I may have finally found an IoT thing I can do that will be approved.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's where it becomes fun then. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we'll follow you on your Twitter, and we should be back same time, same place next week. And if you got any advice on how to clean potentiometers from the 1970s, please let me know. We'll see you next week.
Cheerio.